Hey guys, so today's video is going to be really hard to make just because it's one of those videos where you don't want to have to make it. You want to be able to tell people that it's going to be okay and that things will work out. You know, sometimes that just doesn't happen, and as hard as it is to say, you kind of just have to say it for both yourself and for other people. So as you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about my horrible experiences at the mental hospital or psychiatric facility or whatever you want to call it. I just call it a mental hospital because that's kind of what it is. Again, I know everyone's experiences are going to be different. I mean, that's a given. Everyone is different. Every hospital is different. The staff at a hospital is changing constantly. If something happens, I don't want you guys to be afraid of it, because in most cases, mental hospitals are great. They are awesome. They are a great way to get the help that you need. But in my case, it was not helpful at all, and I wish I never went. I think emotionally, I would have been better off without that help and been better just sticking to local therapists and stuff. And kind of a obvious trigger warning, this is going to talk about mental illness and suicide and self-harm. And so if that offends you or triggers you, please click away. My experience should not be potentially harmful to someone else, you know? And also, I'm not going to be giving out official names or anything because I don't want to be sued, and it's just kind of a jerk thing to do. Let's get into this. I was hospitalized at this specific hospital on 2 separate occasions. First one was in April of last year, and the second time was in July of last year. So they were within about 3 months of each other. The first suicide attempt was completely impulsive. I've always been an impulsive person. I ended up overdosing on extra strength ibuprofen or acetaminophen, whatever you want to call it. I impulsively took it, and I lost kind of sense of what was really going on when I did that. And by the time I snapped to my senses, I'd probably taken about 15 extra strength. I freaked out and I called my parents. I was put in the ER. I got everything sorted out. Luckily, it didn't do much harm. When I was hospitalized, I was probably brought to the hospital about 5 p.m. and I didn't get released until 1 a.m. They were like, okay, what kind of stuff do you want to do to help? Do you want to go to an inpatient, which is like a mental hospital? Do you want to do outpatient therapy? What do you want? And I ended up going with inpatient. And there is a mental hospital around my area that is really great, and it has great reviews and it has such advanced programs. Unfortunately, I couldn't get into that one because all the beds were full. As I soon learned, the hospital I was actually admitted to was like a last resort hospital, I guess. It was the one that people went to if everywhere else is full. To say that is kind of bizarre because no one wanted to go there. It was the worst hospital I could have ever gone to, I think. And even worse, it was about an hour and a half away from where I lived, and so during visiting hours, my mom would always drive 3 hours to come see me. I don't know. Okay, let's get into this. So I was first admitted on April 24th, I think, of 2017. Immediately when I was signed in, I was not impressed. It did not seem professional at all, in the slightest. The workers were very lazy. I don't know if I should say lazy, but they were not very dedicated. When I got there, obviously, it was the middle of the night, so all the people were asleep. Now, the mental hospital that I went to had a bunch of different wards. There was rehab, there was detox, there was geriatric, there was adult psych, and there was children's psych. And I was obviously in the children's psych. I was 14 at this time. So I was there middle of the night / early morning. I think I got there probably about 5 or 6-ish. I just was not impressed. They did not seem like they actually cared about the people that they were attending to, at least in the children's psych. I can't speak for everywhere else in the hospital and all the different units and stuff because obviously but they just were really dismissive. So the first day I was there, I was super homesick. I had a dog named Daisy. When I was admitted, she was 11, and sadly we had to put her down about a month ago, and she was honestly best dog ever. She was my best friend, and I do miss her a lot. I still cry a lot. I'm probably gonna cry right now. It just sucks, but hey, this is an emotional video, so whatever. I actually have her collar hanging up on my wall right there. She was not doing well. Daisy had cancer, ovarian cancer. She was not doing well, and I was so afraid. Like, well, I was there. I thought she was going to die, and I would come home and she'd be gone, and I wouldn't have had time to say goodbye. But she was the best dog ever. Anyway, the first time I stayed for about 7 days. So my second hospital stay after I was released May 1st of 2017, and I attempted suicide again. I think it was July 2nd, and then for the third time, July 7th, and then I was hospitalized again in the ER. I chose to go to... There's a person walking by. I chose to go back to that mental hospital because I was afraid of going somewhere else and not having any idea what to do. So I chose to go there. Great. This time the actual process took a lot longer. I think I was admitted at noon. Not admitted, but like in the ER. I was taken to the ER at noon, and I don't think I got out until probably like 3 in the morning, and then I was transported by ambulance to the hospital. Or something like that. I'm not sure. I can't remember like exact dates and times and stuff. If this was a long time ago, I've kind of blocked it out because obviously. And I think the second time was far worse than the first time. I will get onto like the specific points of why this mental hospital was such a bad place for me to go. Okay, first one I have listed is lack of beds, so sent here. As I stated before, this was like a last resort type place. Building was absolutely beautiful, the format was great, but the staffing was so terrible. The staff members, well, most of them had no freaking care to the people they were treating. It was just a job. Well, I mean, it is a job, but you have to have like empathy and sympathy for your patients. You can't just like treat them like they're nothing, you know? It's one of those jobs where you need to be like caring and stuff. You can't just give them medicine and then hope they'll be good, you know? Okay. Lack of communication. Oh, this is one of the things that made me so mad. When I was hospitalized the first day, I was told that I would be meeting with my doctor to change my antidepressants the next day. We didn't change my antidepressants until probably the 6th day, because that's when the doctor finally came. And whenever I asked them, hey, what's going on? They were just like, oh, it's fine. He's not working. And I'm like, okay, then why didn't you tell me that before? And then they would change and be like, okay, he's coming in. And then he didn't come in. Or sometimes he would come in and I'd be waiting for him to call me in so he could change my medication, but he never did. Like, it's just really frustrating to have all these expectations of what treatment you're gonna get, and then none of them are followed. Whenever you ask, they treat you like you're stupid. They treat you like you don't know what's best for yourself. And in some cases, you might not know, but in most cases, you do know what's best for yourself. And I wanted to get switched off this medication as soon as I could. Another point for the lack of communication, I got put on this gabapentin. I'm not exactly sure the official name, but it was to help for my anxiety. Then I took it 3 times a day. I took morning, afternoon, night. And after one day of having it, I started getting super dizzy and I would nearly pass out, and I was having double vision. And I told the nurses, I'm like, hey, this stuff is happening, help. And they were just kind of like, oh, it's probably just like minor side effects. The next day, it got so bad, I was constantly nauseous, and they finally took me off the stupid medication, and then they put me on another one. Okay, next thing I put is lack of order. So my children's psych unit had a program put in place for like an adolescent order thing, and basically you had a schedule. So you would have breakfast, and then you would have physical activity, and then you would have group therapy, and then you would have lunch, and then, you know, it was very well constructed on what kids who are depressed needed to deal with, you know? It was never followed. I think it was followed maybe the first day I was there. And then after that, it was basically like, we went to breakfast, lunch, dinner. The rest of the time, it was group therapy, which sometimes got canceled or ran really late, like an hour late. And then besides that, they just let us in the main room called the day room. And there was an Xbox and a TV and Netflix and like coloring supplies. And like you could just do whatever you wanted as long as you were quiet. And I mean, that's cool. It's like cool bonding and stuff for like the other kids who are there for like similar problems as you. But like, it doesn't help at all when it comes to actual like mental stuff. Like, how is playing on the Xbox going to help my mental state? It doesn't. And there was this one nurse that we had. I don't remember her name. She knew that we had to follow that schedule, and she tried to make sure we did. And I really respected her for that. Like, the rest of the staff just got lazy and would just sit around on their phones, which, first of all, is super, super unprofessional, because you're supposed to be watching over us. Basically, what the staff had to do is just every 15 minutes check around and make sure we were okay. There were a number of occasions where the kids would break down. And I'm not just saying crying, I'm saying they were screaming. There was this one girl who punched the wall. They did not care whatsoever. They didn't do anything to help her. They just said, okay, let her calm down. She wasn't violent towards other people. I mean, there was obviously like a risk. She wasn't violent towards other people though. She was violent towards herself. They didn't make any attempts to restrain her or anything. And I thought a proper hospital in that circumstance would restrain her to make sure she doesn't hurt herself anymore, you know? But they just didn't do anything. They didn't want to get hurt themselves, so they just brushed it off. I'm getting so mad right now. I can hear my voice just getting super angry. But it was disgusting. Okay. Oh, the next one. Kind of touched on this, but a lack of doctor/therapist. There were about 3 therapists at the child adolescent unit. And so every kid was assigned a therapist. And the therapist that I got the first time was absolutely great. She was wonderful. She understood when I said what I wanted, and she would help me reach that goal. And but the second time I had a different therapist, and he tried to do what he thought was best for me, but it wasn't. And the lack of doctors. There was one official doctor. I mean, he had a degree, but he kind of just prescribed us the medication. He didn't actually meet with us that often. Well, the first time, this one, I don't know if it was a doctor or a therapist actually, but I was telling him about like my mood swings and stuff like that, and he was like, okay, yeah, I think you have bipolar, and they put me on Abilify to help like stabilize mood swings and stuff. And I was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, bipolar runs in my family, you know. And then the next time I went there and I said like, yeah, this guy said I had bipolar and I was put on Abilify, blah blah blah, and he was like, you don't seem like you have bipolar. And I'm like, okay. Then he was like, people with bipolar usually pull all-nighters a lot. And at this point, I did not pull all-nighters like ever. I just knocked out for like a good 10 hours. Whatever. But he was like, I don't think you have bipolar since you aren't waking up or staying up or anything like that. And I'm like, aren't there 2 different types of bipolar? And then he acted like I had no idea what I was talking about. And he was like, well, yeah, but the second type is not very well known in teenagers and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, whatever. Okay, cool. And he was like, okay, I think you have borderline personality disorder. And I'm like, okay, can I see why You think that? Like, cool, saying that you think I have something is cool, but I want you to give me the symptoms that I have that correlate to, like, BPD. Like, you can't just say I have it. And then that was never followed through with. I never was put on any medication. It was never put in the system that he thought I had BPD. Ended up talking to a therapist later, and he said, like a proper therapist at like a high-end place, like, who knew what he was doing. And he was like, yeah, I do think you have bipolar. And he gave me a second as needed anxiety medication that would help more with mood swings. But I think it was guavacine that I have now. I'm so angry right now. And then rude staff, I already went over that. Staff was disgusting. And finally, bad kids. Now when I say this, I'm not saying that because of their mental illnesses, they were bad kids. They were not. Bad kids. Not because of their mental illness, not because of their addictions. They were bad kids because of what they said to the other kids. There was this one girl. Everyone was terrified of her. She was very threatening. This girl was older, she was bigger, and she had a lot more experience with mental illness stuff. Knew how to like emotionally manipulate someone, which is awful, but she did it all the time. And she wasn't really well liked. And one time she was sitting all alone at a table. I think this is the second day I was there. And I wasn't really friends with any of the other people there yet. And so I was just like, okay, what the heck? Maybe she just misunderstood. And I go and sit next to her during, I don't know, lunch, breakfast, dinner, I don't know. I sat next to her and we kind of started talking. She's like, what are you in for? And when I first arrived, people were like, oh, why are you here? And I was kind of like, I would like seize up. I'm like, I'm not telling you. Like, that's really personal. And now I don't really have like a problem, you know? It's very open there. And so she was like, what are you in for? And I'm like, overdose. She's like, how many did you take? And I'm like, I don't know, like 15-ish. And she's just like, that's not enough to kill you. Next time you should do 30. She was giving me advice on how to kill myself. I was like, why would you say that? Like, I'm here to get help. And she's like, I've come here 6 times before. I never got help. I know what it's like to want to die. So I want to help people achieve that goal. It's just, how could someone do that? I just don't understand. And I heard this on multiple occasions. It doesn't make sense. We're there to get help. Why are you helping us with trying to do it again? I don't know. That's what I mean when I say bad kids. The second time I was there, even though this girl, like that girl I was talking about before, she was during the first hospital stay, there was this other girl during the second hospital stay who still affects me to this day. Should I just give her a fake name? Her name's gonna be Holly. Holly, cool, her name's Holly. Holly was one of those girls, she was a lesbian, and she truly believed she could find true love at a mental hospital. She was 14, same age as me. When I got there, there was this other girl, let's name her Robin or something. Robin, cool. Robin was 13, and they had a relationship. They would make out constantly. Apparently, they did sexual acts in each other's bedroom, and you're not allowed to go into each other's room. They would go into each other's room, the staff wouldn't notice. And so they'd constantly talk about this stuff, and I'm like, okay, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to hear about that happening at a mental hospital where we're supposed to be healing. And the 13-year-old girl, I guess, I don't know if she was molested or raped, but when she was younger, one of those two happened, or both, I don't know. Holly came up to me one time and she was like, do you have any advice on how to make Robin feel better when we're doing sexual acts so she doesn't go into a panic attack? And I just kind of like looked at her, I'm like, don't do them? Like, this is a mental hospital. This is a mental hospital. I am giving you guys advice. If you are ever in a mental hospital, don't look for a relationship, okay? A lot of my friends at the mental hospital did, and their hearts were broken, inevitably. So, Robin had been admitted earlier, so she ended up leaving about 3 days after I was admitted the second time. The second time I stayed there for 10 days. So Holly was heartbroken, but the fourth day she started hitting on me. And she would make very sexual remarks about like my body and like what she wanted to do, and attempted to and even kissed me on multiple occasions. And I was disgusted. I never felt anything for her. She wasn't someone I was attracted to. So I didn't like her very much. She made me uncomfortable. I didn't like the way she spoke to me or to other people. All she really cared about was sex and lust. She didn't care about a relationship or love or affection or caring. All she wanted was to feel good, and she was 14. But if you do have a relationship that early, it shouldn't be focused on stuff like that. You should be focused on like helping each other and being there for each other, you know? It shouldn't be focused around something like that. And the fact that this was all taking place in a mental hospital where I was supposed to heal, but I was crying myself to sleep every single night and the staff didn't even care. It's the fear of going back to that place or another mental hospital that keeps me from doing something. And I know that's gonna sound really pathetic, but sometimes I definitely do want to do stuff, but I don't do it just because I'm so scared of going back to a place like that and being hurt again or harassed. Mental hospitals are one of those things. They can either be the best thing that happens or the worst thing that happens. And in my case, it was the worst thing that could have happened to me. The people there were rude, staff and kids alike. Doctors and therapists did not care. I was put on medicine just for the sake of being put on medicine. The medicine I'm currently on is Lexapro. I've been on it since November, and it does help. And there's always the option to increase my dosage, but I'm very happy with where I'm at now. And this was prescribed by an outside therapist. And I don't know. I did not like my mental hospital. I did not like my experience. It's not something I'm happy I went through. I've seen the long-lasting, long-term effects that it's had on my parents. They're constantly worried for me. And if I could go back and change what happened, I would have, not just for my sake, but for everyone else's. So that was supposed to be like a mental hospital experience. Kind of got a little bit personal, but I think it might help me. I wish you all the best. No matter who you are, what you look like, what your past is, what you've done, I do wish the best for you, because everyone deserves the best. And I hope that if you found this because you're struggling or something, that you go to someone. I'm here. There are other people there. You might not think it, but there are people there who want to help you. Just have to look. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.